Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gland Bodybuilding. Mountain. And today I'm going to talk about the most underutilized characteristic that is important for you to embrace first before any of the other bodybuilding principles. And this will dictate whether you can make the proper decisions in a workout or proper decisions with range of motion, exercises, diet choices, and so forth. And that is, can you become conscious of what is happening as you go through workout programs or as you go through movements in your exercises? Now, this is the most underutilized aspect of training that I see all sorts of people, especially beginners, but even intermediate and advanced people ignore. And what they do is they just look at the charts, they look at their workout programs, they look at their numbers, and they become very cerebral about everything that's going on. But the most important part about the whole experience is, are you conscious of what experiences lead to the results, right? So you'll see lots of people, they'll be mindlessly doing exercise, and they might be feeling that exercise in a totally different area than they're supposed to, but they continue doing that exercise because it is categorized as a exercise for a certain muscle group. Regardless of whether they're feeling that muscle group or not, they continue to do it because they've been initiated into the programming of what that exercise is for. Now, this even goes further as well, because there are lots of times where people will use an exercise to hit a certain body part, and they might be getting some result there. But at the same time, there can be a far superior exercise or a superior way of performing the exercise in order to get a better result. And I talked about this in the biceps training video. If your biceps aren't growing, this might be why. Well, it's the truth when it comes down to all of your exercises. And certain exercises will hit your muscles in certain ways, and certain ones will not. Even if two exercises look similar, they can be hitting totally different areas. Let's take the one-legged squat, for instance. If you take a pair of dumbbells and you step backwards and then back to the standing position again, and you do a set like that, you will activate different muscles than if you're stepping forwards and back. And I knew a guy that was a trainer back in the day, and he was one of those over-intellectualized type trainers. He had everything justified in his mind based on shit that he had read, right? But his results weren't necessarily in alignment with his ideas. And he used to do one-legged squats by stepping forward and back. Now, he never did hit the vastus lateralis of his legs. His legs weren't developed, but his medialis, the muscle right by the knee, that was developing quite well. But the other major muscle groups that contribute more to the overall leg mass were not developing. But he wasn't necessarily changing his one-legged squat to also hit those areas because he was doing it mindlessly. He was not becoming conscious of where the forces were exerting themselves. And this is where the curse of the intellect can get in the way of your results. It's true. Sometimes if you're an idiot, you will get further on any given path than if you're overly intelligent. And the reason why is because when you're intelligent, you have a tendency to be able to categorize information, and that leads you to making certain leaps of logic that may or may not be true because it's based on the information you have, not based on the information you don't have. So this is where your interaction and your experiencing of each individual exercise is so important. Because again, what is going to work for you or hit certain areas for you is going to be different than somebody else. There's going to be subtle variations that only your experience will teach you. Your experience will teach you the subtleties, and the subtleties can make all the difference. I used to see people disconnected from their body all the time, coming into the gym, training, just going through the standard exercises, but you can see they were totally unconscious when it comes down to what muscles were being hit or whether they were resting at the bottom or not. They were just trying to get from point A to point B, but they weren't paying attention to whether their joints were taking more of the beating, right? They weren't paying attention to whether they were using too extreme a range of motion or too short a range of motion. They weren't paying attention to whether they were using more momentum to move the weight instead of using momentum in order to increase the tension on the area they want to hit, right? Because sometimes a bit of momentum can help you. It's not always that, right? So this is another way that over information and under experience, right, can hold you back, because you'll learn these grandiose rules that are not necessarily true. And they may apply in one situation and maybe not in another, such as subtle swinging of the weight or subtle body English. Sometimes a little bit of body English can help you get past the sticking point and then put more tension on the muscle in certain ranges of motion. And this is also underestimated. So when you become too cerebral and you're not experiencing enough, you'll sometimes come up with these rules that are these ultimatums that are not applicable in every situation. They might be applicable in some, but not all situations. So what I want you to do is revisit every single exercise you do. When you go to train today or tomorrow, revisit every exercise you do and feel exactly what's happening. Where are you feeling the tension? When does the tension change? When does it go from point A to point B? Like say you're doing a bicep curl. When does it transfer to the elbow muscles, like the forearm, the brachialis, right? And when does it transfer from the brachia to the brachialis? Try to find out where those spots are. When you're doing bench, find out where you're feeling chest and then where you start to feel the front delts. Right? When you're doing lateral raises, when are you feeling the delts and then when do you start to feel the neck? When is the trap starting to come in more so than actually the delt? And also, most importantly, when are you starting to feel the pressure in the joint as opposed to the tension in the muscle? So these are all things that you should be practicing as a first priority, and secondarily, you come up with your hypotheses and your theories about what is the best exercise and what's the best this and that, right? What's the best workout program? But you always come back to the experience first as your teacher. Deepen the experience, and then your wisdom will also deepen, and then therefore it becomes your teacher. And that's what I got to say about that. So anyway, I hope this helps you out in your training, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. And if you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalglandbodybuilding.com. And thanks to the page supporters, and take care for now. Mountain.